Hey, welcome to Academy of Tone 208 and welcome back in black, Mr. Richard Morgan.
Hello everybody, hi, good evening.
High voltage.
Very good.
Yeah, this episode is about Acdc and it's about tubes and power reduction. Rich brought in this BrownBox the other day and we were thinking about what to do with it. And besides the nerdy stuff, which we will talk about in a while, we came up with the idea of this is the AC provided to tube amps, like my good old Marshalls back in the room. And of course there is some high voltage, which is the plate voltage of the tubes. And that is affected by the AC coming into the amp. Actually, there is no DC. No, there is DC, but after the power supply when it's rectified. But we will get into this kind of technical stuff later on. Before we dive into this, we met 2 weeks ago again at the Brilon Musikworld house messe, right?
We did, yes. Where is it? In the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Germany. In Brilon, right?
Brilon. Okay, if you don't know where Brilon is, it's not a problem because it's like the other joke in Germany, like there's a city called Bielefeld and nobody knows that Bielefeld exists, and they have even created a story around that. So like the German Tatort, which is our Streets of San Francisco kind of entertaining program on TV, they played with that thing. So they all mentioned the city that doesn't exist, but I think Brilon is actually more. It's a beautiful little town.
It is. It's really, really nice. And it was my first time in this region of Germany, which I think is called the Sauerland, right? Is that the name of it?
I think the North Sauerland.
Yeah, and I was in Frankfurt before, and you start to drive north, and you go through some quite big towns like Gießen, and then Marburg, and then you have to turn off the big roads, and you go onto these tiny country roads, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and then you end up in this town of Brilon, where there is really not that much. It's beautiful but small, but there's this amazing shop, like the Music World Brilon is an incredible store. Like they have a great selection of stuff. Of course, they have Amp One, right?
Yeah.
But all of the big brands, so much choice, really, really impressive.
Yeah. I'm so lucky that this kind of dealer still is existing, and that's why I went there for my clinic, and as you did, and other people's. I met Jan Majora. I met all the industry people, the usual, which is cool. But there were actually people coming to the shop. It was busy day.
Yeah, especially the Saturday. Like they run a whole week, so that the store is open Monday to Friday, and they extend the hours. And my sales colleague who was also there, he told me Monday to Thursday was kind of like, it was a bit slower. Friday morning it was kind of slow, but then it picked up, and Friday afternoon was super busy, and then Saturday when you showed up, it was full. It was great.
It was super. Yeah. It was worth doing it.
Yes, for sure.
And this is kind of something good. And by the way, announcing events on the 8th. Is it the 8th and the 9th? Wait a minute. Let me look at my calendar.
While Thomas looks at that, there is a little debate going on in the chat about who was the best Acdc singer. Bon Scott or Brian Johnson. I don't know if you have an opinion. But you guys, everybody tell us who you think was better, or if you like them both.
Yeah, please do. The Acdc singers to me are all great because it's a trademark to sing at that high register. It's so iconic, and not everybody can do it. And it's so good. And by the way, I wanted to announce that I'm going to the Hamburg Crossroads Festival of Number One Music Store on the 8th and the 9th of June. This is like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Yeah, just talking events.
Crossroads, what's happening there?
Well, it's again 2 days. Number One Music Center is also a very, very nice shop in Hamburg, North Germany. I'm connected with the shop with this YouTube channel, The World of Vintage Guitars, where I have the pleasure to play the most expensive 400,000 euro expensive flying V's that belong to Rudolf Schenker, and they gave me guitars that are exceptionally expensive, and some of them are actually exceptionally good. That helps me to get other vintage guitars in my hands, not knowing that I will never buy them because they're too expensive at the moment. But I'm learning from every guitar. And what I will do, I will be there with BluGuitar, so there will be a seminar like the one that I've done at the Music World Prelon. The seminars now is like 10 years of BluGuitar, so I can go through every product, I can go through questions and stuff. So if you are in North Germany, come and see me at the 8th and 9th of June. And not to forget, on the 8th, the Saturday evening, I'm there with my Rock Anarchy. We will have Markus Dehme as a guest, and we will also have Andreas Kloppmann, the pickup maker, as a guest guitarist, and other people joining in. We will see. It's always big fun. Okay. The other thing, back to ACDC now.
I'm Bon Scott, by the way. I think Brian Johnson's amazing.
Yeah.
But I think for me personally, there was also something about the cheeky lyrics that Bon wrote. Like some of the jokes that are in there are just
hilarious,
so good. And he had this attitude. I mean, obviously, I never got to see him because he died before I was even born. But both incredible singers.
Yeah, but he was the wild character.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the rock and roll life. I mean, he invented the AC/DC figure and lived it, and did it too much.
Yeah, exactly. I was reading and researching this the other day, and someone asked him in an interview, "Are you the AC or the DC?" And he said, "I'm neither of these. I'm the lightning bolt in the middle of the logo." And that's absolutely right. I mean, that was him, and he burnt out pretty fast. But what a guy!
Yeah, what a guy! Exactly. Yeah. So, you came up with the comment that this High Voltage album is the 48th anniversary.
Yeah, yesterday, May the 14th, 1976. This was the first international worldwide release that they did of an album.
And that's your vinyl.
This is my copy, yeah.
Yeah, stating it was printed in 1976, before many of you guys were born.
Before I was born as well, first edition, but yeah.
So this is the original nice vinyl. There's something about vinyl. I have to admit, the other day I was going through my vinyl collection because I wanted to clean up the house a little bit, and sort of stuff that I need to keep because it's so iconic and so special to me personally, and other things that just take away too much space and I will find on YouTube anyhow, or Spotify and whatnot. But to keep some vinyls, and then of course I put some vinyls on my turntable. It's a ceremony.
Yeah. It's an experience. You know, you can make a nice drink, you get everything ready, you get your nice comfy chair, you put the needle down, and you let the album play.
Yeah.
And you don't skip any tracks or move up to something else, and it's an experience.
Yeah. And people sometimes forget about having time for something. And that's the thing, when you have your mobile phone in the hands, you are tempted. When there's just a second of maybe bang, you swipe it and you have something else. But when you put a vinyl, this kind of 12-inch or whatever centimeters is like a 12-inch speaker, I guess.
Yeah, 30 centimeters,
Yeah. You put that on the turntable, and then you lift the arm, and then the crackle starts, and then you are, in that ceremony, and you don't go there and do too much. No, you're actually more patient. At least I am when I do this.
Yeah, well, that's the way I see it, and I imagine that a lot of the people watching this are kind of in a similar camp because we're all music fans, right? And
yeah.
I think a lot of the same people who love the old tech, like tube amps, probably enjoy listening to vinyl. LPs on vinyl. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, even a CD sometimes feels physical, you know, in a way, like you have that kind of thing, like one of mine, haha. By the way, it's called The Beauty of Simplicity, which totally applies to ACDC.
Yes.
Because ACDC is like reduced to the max, and that's the beauty of simplicity.
Yeah.
So, by the way, yeah. And if you have one of those in your hands, you look at the picture and you do this and you put it in the player, yeah, it's part of that experience.
Yeah, CDs are kind of the same. I mean, I grew up in the CD generation, so I have literally thousands that my parents are storing back at home, which they're worth nothing, right? That's the problem with CDs. But vinyl, for some reason, it kept its value, and a lot of the old rare stuff is rising in value, and vinyl sales worldwide are going up every year now.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and there are artists like Taylor Swift, for example, who are responsible for more kids buying vinyl too, so I'm all for that.
Yeah, super. And that reminds me that I wanted to get my best of as a vinyl edition too. People ask for that, and I always forget about it.
That would be great. Yeah. It's another great way that you can support current artists, you know, because lots of people who are playing now, they don't make money from Spotify or anything like that. So if you're at a show, buy a shirt or buy a record or something. Yeah. It's a great way to support them.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why physical rules. Talking about rules, ACDC starting their tour, and they're touring a lot this year, in Germany, in Gelsenkirchen Parkstadion, which I also played. So, and the funny thing is, we have seen pictures in the internet that were showing some of the musicians, maybe even Angus, arriving in a very normal car, bringing in the gear for the rehearsals. I mean, you know, totally underdog. It's like, it's not me. I'm just coming here, you know.
Is that really their stuff?
Yeah, that's their stuff. At least.
That's I mean, that's cool. But I think they're normal guys. You know. I don't know how rock and roll they were as a band, apart from Bon Scott back in the day. But I don't think they were that crazy, right?
No,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview with Angus Young, it's a while ago, and he said, you know, they all had your parties in the 70s with his nice accent, and he said about, you know, all that drugs that were around back in those days, and then they were kind of the young boys, and they asked him, hey, what are you on? And he said, chocolate bars. Give me a good chocolate bar, that's all I want. So well, anyway, he
was still a kid, right? I mean, he was wearing a school uniform, eating chocolate. And Bon Scott was like maybe 9 or 10 years older than Angus. Yeah.
So I mean, killer. And what kind of characters they are? When I'm enjoying watching videos about this band. So researching about ACDC is fun, and there will be tons of gigs. And what I heard is they play this Friday, and then they have to take a little bit off day because they are elderly people. Mm-hmm. And then on Tuesday there's the next gig, same venue, and they kind of book the whole stadium because they are probably sold out, you know, the 2 shows, and that makes enough money for leave the amp on the stage and just go home, you know, have a tea, and then come back Tuesday and make another $1 million, which is cool.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
If you can, yeah.
And it's to me very sympathetic in a way. I kind of dig the guys. Very, very good. What are the favorite riffs, Rich? Do we have? I mean, they are all so iconic. But I mean, it's like the singer questions.
Yeah, well, my favorite AC/DC riffs in general are from the High Voltage album.
You can mention both.
I mean, I actually think that High Voltage riff is great.
Yeah.
And as we were talking earlier, you said it comes from The Who, right?
I mean, this... What is the Is it Baba O'Reilly? I think there is this typical part. So that's the Who, and that's ACDC. There's one extra note, and maybe the Who played it. But totally Pete Townsend. That's the intro riff. And then when you go and listen to the next part, I mean, on the record, I think that's Chuck Berry basically.
Yeah, a lot of their earlier stuff was much bluesier, and they did do covers of guys like Chuck Berry. As someone correctly said there in the comments, this was their first worldwide album, but they'd released 2 previously in Australia only, TNT and High Voltage, and they kind of put the best songs from those records together for this international release. And on the older ones, there was some Chuck Berry stuff, for example. So yeah, they were hugely inspired by the blues, and a lot of the older riffs, like the Jack, for example, it's really bluesy. It's blues, and the songs are long and they build up, and there's a great groove to them. And they did change a lot over the years.
And that's one thing. There is a live version of High Voltage from what was it? The album? Did I write that down? Donington. Was it Donington?
Yeah, live at Donington. Yeah.
Yeah. And talking about build up, basically that's a disco beat.
Yeah.
The way AC/DC grooves to me is so special because they totally understand how to play eights in a way, and it has a swing.
Yeah,
it's not like stiff. It is tight. It's pumping, but it's a real groove. Like the Rolling Stones have a unique groove, and Chic has a unique groove, and so what they are doing on this live version, I think it's so killer because the drum doesn't change at all. It's just like in the disco, goes on forever, and of course the bass. So and then they build it up. It's like the singer goes one note, and then the guitar gives the question-answer thing, and build it up with the next note. This is what excites me. The whole band understands that groove concept and the power of the groove, and this is why they are so great in stadiums.
Yep.
They make people move.
Yep.
And it's like nobody is getting in front of the other members. They all understand they have to be a groove wall in sync. So it's little micro timings on where the bass drum sits and the bass is played. That is the secret of that band.
Yeah, and it's so simple, but at the same time, it's not easy to get it right. Otherwise, so many other bands would have that power, but somehow AC/DC has this unique
magic
capacity to do it.
Yeah, to me, it's magic, and you can listen a lot of AC/DC songs played in a way that they don't really work that well. I mean, everybody plays Highway to Hell, okay, but just to find the right tempo is the first thing.
Yeah.
Most of the times it's too fast, That's what I recognize. And the second thing is where the drums sit in in comparison to the guitar riff, because it starts in the bass drum and the snare drum. Hey, there is micro timing going on. It's a magic arrangement. They feel it, and other people that play hundreds of different styles, they play everything like correct, but they don't feel it the same way ACDC is doing that.
Yeah.
And there lies the real magic.
Yeah.
To me. And it is the thing, it's like there is no second chance. Once the groove is not right, it's so hard to get it back, and usually it doesn't get back. And somehow ACDC has this patience, you know, they know they have the power, but it's like they're so cool, you know, they're just no worries.
Yeah, exactly. Like Carsten just said, the pauses are the most important thing.
Yeah.
So it's the secret of knowing when not to play as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's their simple arrangements, but it's very clever. And the next thing is anything they do rhythmically is very good. When the drum comes in, the nothing. No, don't even get nervous. Nothing. Cool. I love it.
I wonder if you're going to get a copyright strike for that riff.
Ah, shit. I should play lousier.
They probably got us for the first song anyway. But
yeah, okay. I can play like...
That's how I play it.
We can do our versions of famous... okay. Back in minor. Yeah, but Angus has that super nice energy. I mean, he has this vibrato that goes like... and he has small hands and he compensates everything with sheer energy.
Yeah.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think he was inspired a lot by Chuck Berry, right? That was one of the main ones, yeah.
Yeah. So, talking about on this album, and on this particular album, is there...
Yeah.
What's happening?
Other riffs. Well, one of the other songs that we've actually played before on this show would be TNT, which is another super simple riff. Yeah, so simple but so good, and it just works. And then there's the first track, which is iconic, which is of course with the bagpipes featured in it. That's another special thing. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, which is also just super simple. It's just like...
Yeah.
And that one is one that you can't play along with on the record because it's kind of out of tune. It's like a quarter of a step down or something like that, which is kind of weird. A lot of the early AC/DC stuff was like that,
and the original.
And there are reasons.
Yeah, and this track, I also, when I listened to the original one to listen what he actually played, my preparation was very short. I had to tune the guitar. For some reason, the backing track was normal.
Yeah. Yeah, there are backing tracks that you can find online where I guess people have pitched it up or made it a tiny bit faster or whatever. But yeah, they are a tiny bit flat. And there may be some experts like Max Carton in the chat who might know other reasons for it, but I've read various things about it. And one of them with this track is that apparently, well, back in the day, they didn't just have as many electronic tuners as we had, and they would tune up to whoever sounded close.
Yeah.
But the other thing was, with that track specifically, that there's bagpipes in it. And so they tuned everything to the bagpipes to make sure that all worked. Yeah.
And back in those days, they had tape machines.
Yeah.
And the tape machine had like a vari speed, and the vari speed is also. I mean, I recorded my first 2 albums on 24-track tape, and I didn't do that because we already had like worked out arrangements and we were sure about the tempo.
Yeah.
But back in those days, sometimes producers just tried out if it sounds or the groove feels a little bit heavier if you reduce the speed, and then of course the pitch goes down. Could also be. It's probably anything like tuning to the bagpipes.
Yeah, could be any of those. Yeah, Max Carton in the chat
Max,
saving us there.
Hey, Max, I have a full Max Carton detail page here. For those who haven't seen Max Carton, we have some Academy of Tones that he was joining. I think it was at least 2. Feels like 3, but at least 2. And he will be back later the year because, you know, he's the expert. And here's some nerdy stuff that I can talk about. Angus used a 72 Super Lead 100 watts with his 71 Gibson SG. And by the way, Max is having such stuff. And when he comes back, we will be really nerdy and go into these details. Malcolm had a 71 Super Bass, I guess also with 100 watts, of course. The Super Bass, where's mine? It's in the corner here. There is one in the room. Doesn't matter. So that's a very, very special amp. And Malcolm also has a very special guitar, the 63 Gretsch Firebird. And on this album, Max told me there was still the original pickup in that particular guitar.
Oh yeah.
And it's only 4 kilo ohms. I mean, a Strat pickup has 6 kilo ohms already. So that Gretsch guitar was super weak. And that's something very important for the AC/DC tone. They don't have that much gain. People mostly think it's like, and play with too much gain for it. And less is more. And as maybe you or Max, somebody told me, like, especially Malcolm is key to the sound because it's kind of on the edge of break-up sound, but breaking up, but still coming from the clean side. And then if it's at the right spot with the right amount of digging in, is just perfect.
Yeah, you can hear on some of the songs on High Voltage, for example, Livewire, that builds up over about 6 minutes. A lot of the songs are really long. On that record, by the way, like 5.5, 6 minutes. The bass just picks a B for ages.
Yeah.
And then he comes in with like a... And what I just played there was even more breaking up than the signal you hear. Yeah, so that kind of thing, and it's super clean. It sounds huge.
Yeah.
And volume, of course, was key to making it sound huge.
Of course. And then if you think about the stages in the signal path that are compressing, at this kind of 100 watt amp hits the speaker, it is speaker compression.
Yeah.
And then it's power amp compression, so it's kind of backwards. It's not preamp gain. And when we are trying to get somewhere to this kind of sound, which we just briefly did, what I dialed in for Rich is the Mercury on the vintage channel, gain on 7, but I used the one control, and maybe the overhead can show it. This is like, what is it, 11 o'clock? Yeah, or 10, let's say it's 10 o'clock. So the gain is reduced.
Yeah.
And that helps to have that breathing, dynamic tone that you can control with the right hand.
Yeah, exactly.
And that if there's too much gain, there is no ACDC rock and roll. It's like later. It's like Ozzy, with overdrive and Randy Rhoads. But ACDC is way cleaner than we mostly think.
Yeah. The more gain you add, the more compressed it is, the smaller it sounds.
Yeah.
And as Max is coming in with more content here, Malcolm was a clean freak. He cleaned all the tones up with the years and would always dial Angus's gain back behind his back. You can hear it on the records too. After Malcolm's departure, Angus gained up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen them live. Since Stevie Young is playing the Malcolm Young stuff, I don't know how they're doing that in terms of gain.
Wait a minute. You have the mic. I have to fix it. Wait a minute.
Okay.
Dr. Luke.
I still tried to fix it. Lucas gave me a message.
But wait.
Thank you,
so
sir.
I will try this. Okay. Hello.
Let's go with that.
Sound check. Rich back. Okay, Rich is back. Back in black. I want my Rich back. Hatchback, Rich back. When there's a few other funny stories that especially Max was telling me. I didn't know that. Back in the days, at this time around, Angus was playing tons of live shows on the neck pickup, not bridge. I mean, when we think of ACDC, everything sounds like bridge, and all the records are. But watch all those pictures, because the sound that he had was a little bit too bright, too shrill. So live, he simply went for the rhythm pickup or for the neck pickup and played everything on the neck pickup live. I mean, nobody would think of that. I was surprised, but hey.
I had no idea he did that.
Yeah. I mean, those pictures don't lie. Anyway.
Unless the switch was wired back to front.
That could also be, but I don't think so. No, it is practical things that you I think that's also another AC/DC thing. They were not that nerdy. They just made it work.
Yeah.
In a way. Just look at the car with these guitars that goes to the Gelsenkirchen Stadium. I mean, this is so. Who cares? Nobody needs a Rolls Royce. Everybody just drive there for the fun of it. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He has a few more details. Malcolm had some guitar tweaks, and most of them seem to be horrible. So that's why his guitar had several switches, has seen several pickups, PAF and whatnot, and then in the end he returned to something super simple. And then he got his low output 4 kilo ohm pickup rewired for 8K, which is still nothing in modern terms, which is like double of it. But that was then finally probably his tone. And then Max also mentioned that the sound in the studio was recorded on U47 FET preamp microphone. So the Neumann U47 is a classic large diaphragm. What is it? Yeah, the diaphragm membrane, and it's not tubes. It's FETs, which is like transistors with a tube-style character. And this was long before the Schaefer wireless. And this was before blackback speakers, so greenbacks with 25 watts, the usual stuff that everybody had.
Yeah.
And then later on they changed for blackbacks and the G1265, which is maybe their, in my opinion, best cabinet for them. Different mid-range. Yeah, so these are some. Max, do you have any things to add to what you told me?
You probably should have invited Max instead of me to do this.
Well, he lives in Belgium, and
good point. Yeah,
and this, I mean, it would be fine if this would be around the corner, but
yeah, no, true. But Max, definitely, you got to come back on and share more of your wisdom, because there is clearly a lot of appetite for it.
Yeah. And this is a great book, by the way, with kind of. So here it's like the old school telephone. You can
make him do his. What's the name of the move where he would fall on the floor and kind of spin round?
I don't know.
But that thing, yeah.
Is there a Angus? I mean, there's the duck walk and the move like Jagger song, and this is the twist like Angus. Yeah, great book with very cool early pictures. I love that when you see how all the prehistory where all the members come from, and when they were really young, and yeah, it's just a great rock and roll band. Straightforward,
Yeah, and still doing it. Half a century after they released that first record, they're now filling stadiums still in Germany. It's crazy.
And of course this cool uniform. I wondered how I mean, it's cool, but it's like, would you like to go on stage with a school uniform all your time? He is doing it here, the spin.
Yeah, there you go.
No?
Yeah, I mean, it worked for him. It became an instant, visual thing that crowds loved. And I read that at one point, all of them had kind of a weird sort of on-stage gimmick. They all wore slightly different uniforms. And at some point, Malcolm said, okay, from this point on, only Angus is going to play lead guitar, because Malcolm used to play a bit of lead before. He was a great lead player.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, we're all going to do rhythm. We're going to stand back. Angus will keep his school uniform and
do the show.
Thing. And that's how it happened, yeah. Please confirm or deny that that's true, Max.
Yes. And see, I mean, there's simple duct tape here. Like easy fix, who gives a fuck, kind of, no?
Yeah.
It's like, if who was it? Was it Pete Townsend or Blackmore or some of the guys who were smashing guitars back in the 60s? And then they came to the US and they had to open, they played New York and they had to play like 2 or 3 shows a day. So they smashed the guitar and glued it back together for the next one.
Yeah.
Hopefully it was dry before it falls apart, before they smash it, so stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny, these guys back in the day, they weren't thinking about the gear at all in the way that we are. We've just spent, half an hour, 45 minutes analyzing minute details about pickups and what microphones and speakers they used. They didn't care. It was like how Leo Fender built the first Fender guitars. He wasn't thinking about the stuff that we think about today. He was just trying to build the best, most affordable guitars for people to make music with.
Yeah.
And ACDC were just making rock and roll music.
Yeah.
And now we're spending a lot of time nerding out about it, which is great, but
Of course, it's like they had to use the intuition, because there wasn't all that stuff around. And that's something that I really, really like that spirit, because also other bands in that era like Genesis or all the they had to come up with their own version. And now, since there's everything is so packed with just metal. I mean, just think about a metal. Metal started as maybe Ozzy Osbourne and Tony Iommi, and then suddenly it there were 10 bands and then 100 bands, and now we have like 100 styles of metal already with millions of sub bands. Speed, doom, thrash. What not metal. And anyway, so do we have any ACDC related questions at this point left open? Malcolm was a huge loss. I totally agree.
The driving force. That's how I saw him. And when I was growing up, I was a small kid after grunge had come.
Yeah.
And I gravitated towards AC/DC stuff, but I always went after Malcolm because of the way he was just kind of stood in the back driving the rhythm, and that's always been my thing and the way I approach guitar. And I think he was so powerful, and I think they still do a great job if you listen to their live stuff now, but it's like he's missing. He had this magic thing, and you can't replace what he did, his attitude, his way of doing it. And
it's a personality.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and that is expressed in the music as well. It's part of the compositions, but it's actually in the way people play.
Yeah.
And that can't be replaced. Even the greatest player can't do 100% a guy that is doing something for his whole entire life. I mean, you can mimic that. Me as a session guy, I try to do that, and I tell you how hard that is. Sometimes I spend hours just to get one line. If we had to do some like remake of something, some advertising company wanted to have that Kool and the Gang riff, but we had to play it exactly like the original because they used the sample. So but it needed to be re-recorded, so it was not under the license of whatever CBS in the States. And then micro timing and stuff like that. It's like even knowing what they're doing, that's not enough. You have to find a way how to, and that's personality in the end. And so this is a loss anyhow.
Yeah.
I see one question which has nothing to do with anything. I'm just answer it because I see Michael Schenker, UFO sound with amp1. Well, I'm pretty sure he sounds great on it because he got the tone in the fingers. No, but generally I believe he would also be happy with that amp because it's in his ballpark tone-wise. And there's another nice story. I got this guitar from a good friend of mine. I'm not sure if I mention him next time I ask if he wants to be mentioned or not, so I don't do it. SG by Maybach, German brand, black. So okay, of course, nice guitar, all good. But when I picked up the guitar, he did a great test with me. He had his new switching system, like this one here with 4 different amps. And then he said, you tell me which amp is which. And so I went through the amps. I played that guitar, so not my Strat. I couldn't tell. And then the first amp was a JDM 45, not mine, because his, which sounds again different. And I could identify this. Okay. So I had only 3 left. One of them was, I don't know, a Metropolis, and one was a 79 blah 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 Marshall, and one was an amp1. Actually it was a silver edition, but it doesn't care. So I was switching, and of course everything dialed in AC/DC style. Then okay, I had only the choice of 3, and I got like which one is the amp one, which one is... I could not recognize my amp like immediately. It took me quite a while, for many reasons, but that's the challenge. In the end, I did it. I was right, but it was what a challenge. The point here is, if you know somebody plays that particular amp, just by knowing the fact what it is, makes you play and guess things in a certain direction. And if you're actually blindfolded or not knowing anything, I can tell you how hard it is to find the truth. And this brings me to the switching system that we have today for the nerdy stuff, because high voltage is also tube related. And I think in all the gear that we have, the tubes have the highest voltage of basically the electronics that we are allowed to have at home. And we are talking about 500 volts as a plate voltage for like 606 or even more, but we are not talking, we are talking more than voltage than what's coming out of the power outlet. Yeah. And well, okay, if you want to make a short life, you touch those power amp tubes, because don't do it. It happened to me once. I accidentally got this. It's like a bite. If you go for the regular power outlet in the house, that hurts too, but that's pretty warm. But high voltage bite, dangerous. I mean, never do anything of that. Stay away from that. It just happened to me accidentally. I tell you, high voltage hurts. And so there is a reason for ACDC and high voltage. And so coming to tubes, the thing is, the voltage on tubes defines a lot what the tubes are actually doing. If there would not be applied any voltage, there would not be any amplification, because basically what a tube is like making a signal bigger, amplifying a signal. You have a small signal coming from a pickup, going into a preamps, and then, you know, over all these stages, it's getting bigger, 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 and finally in the power amp stage, with the high plate voltage, this is where you have the most, the highest voltage means the most headroom, and this moves using a transformer the speaker. I think now it's time to show the laptop. Oops, this was not so clever. Wait a minute, don't kill that guitar. Yes. So a little bit nerdy maybe, but it looks cool. Can we see this, Lucas? I can come closer. It's only white. Now we can see. Okay, this is the red thing here is like the signal. That's a sine wave. That's like the equivalent of your ringing string. You know, going around a center. This is like the center, and it goes this way and that way, and that's the sine wave. So, and when I change one of those parameters, like this one, I increase the gain of the signal. And what happens is the form of the signal changes. Like, see now, before that it was like round, okay? And then when it's like this, it's flattened on the top and the bottom. Okay, this is symmetrical. And this different shape here recreates a different sound. No? This is a perfectly round sine wave, which sounds totally clean, and this would be already overdrive. And that, of course, depends a lot on the voltage. The smaller I do the voltage, the smaller the signal gets. I mean, this kind of direction is the voltage. Let's put it that way. This is the input voltage, and that would be the output voltage, the red curve. And you see, when I reduce the input voltage, the output voltage also changes the shape of the curve. Okay, so what this green and blue line is doing is actually the high voltage on a tube, and this is how it would affect a signal, roughly. Okay, and for those guys who've never heard it, it's like when everything is round, it's more or less clean, and the more edges we get, the more overtones we get, and the more we hear saturation. And the thing about tubes, I think this is some kind of formula or model for tubes, is doing this in a pretty smooth way. So the rounding of the edges is still kind of smooth. In the classic evil transistor world, it would be like, okay, when we reach that point, it will be hard cut off. We call that hard clip. No? Clip means I reach the point of it exceeds the normal clean range. So that's how it looks, but let's hear what is happening. And as I said earlier, the ACDC sound, you have to think backwards. It's like a lot of volume that is put into speakers with cranked amps, and probably the power amp is saturating even more than the preamp, or maybe as much. Our modern amp designs, they have like dedicated clipping stages for saturation, like overdrive pedal. Mm-hmm. And then they have a clean headroom power amp. Okay, that's more neutral and more controllable, but the magic is missing. And that's something that I can show you. Maybe I can show you with, what's this name? Björn Segerborn from Sweden, the Marshall.
Johan Segerborn, is it?
Yeah, Johan, yeah. He always has this Swedish accent, like Marshall. Let's hear my Marshall. I love it. By the way, every sound we heard so far was amp 1, and for those who want to know the settings of Rich, 7 vintage channel, gain on 7, master on 10, bass on 10, what is it? The middle is 4.5, and the treble is like 4.5. So touch of reverb, and the one control reduces the gain like to 10 o'clock setting. By the way, can I grab your guitar? I do the sound guy.
Yeah.
Just to show you a little bit, because that's also related to the whole thing. Why did I dial you in like that? Because, okay, this is not a Gretsch and this is mini humbuckers, but it's sounds cool. It's clean. Rather clean. So when I go and have it like standard setting, it would be like gain like a. So I decrease the gain. I can go even lower. that's the trick how to get there. If I would do the same thing on the gain control here, I put this all the way up and it's too bright because that's the bright cap here. But in any way, it sounds better when it's not so much overdriven. So all I'm saying is even my vintage channel is nice, but less gain is more ACDC. So. Did I kill the algorithm? Okay, you know what I mean. Different guitar, just for fun. Let's see how we can tweak tones. For fun, I take the 335. And then listen to that sound. Now we are missing some of that treble.
Yep.
I use that guitar because it's a good guitar and it's actually kind of bright, but the mini humbuckers are really bright. So in that case, I would rather go normal, like it ships, like I put this like off. This is amp 1 as it ships. This is now not doing anything because it's all the way up. And I just reduced the gain here to like 4. So, first lesson, less gain is more ACDC. So, now we get into the territory of the ultimate Marshall. Let's start with my 45. Okay.
Question. Someone says, would low gain mode be enough on amp 1? Would that make a difference? Or?
Yeah. Low gain mode is like a value that will be similar to this on like 1 o'clock. So it's more that it is less is more. This is low gain mode. See, with the ES335 we didn't use any low gain mode. We were on full gain. If you are using low gain mode, you get like 30% less gain, and that gets your guitar cleaner and still warm, depending on the guitar. So that's all the thing about the guitar. The lower the gain, the more presence comes from the gain treble bleed capacitor. And therefore, certain guitars that are too bright, it's better to reduce the gain from the circuitry with this control, or use the low gain mode and use more here, because that evens out the high end. So answer is low gain mode gives you the option to match your bright guitar even better. So back to my Marshall. So there is no boost, there is no nothing. We should start on bypass everything.
Yeah, well, let's explain what this is first, because maybe the guys don't really know. So, yeah, like you said earlier, this was kind of given to me at the NAMM show earlier this year. The folks from the company, AmpRx, were chatting with a YouTuber we both know, Andy Ferris, the guitar geek, and they said to me, hey, how about you test this out and make a video with it.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, okay.
Well, why not?
I don't really know
what it is, what
we're talking about here, what it does.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to know it right now. And this is actually a perfect opportunity for you to come in and use your amp design and knowledge to explain what this BrownBox product actually does. Yeah. And the official name or title of it would be voltage attenuator, right?
An attenuator or regulator.
But,
let's say this is an attenuator because it gives you less or bypass. So, which means we can see that we are on 228 volts now, and that's bypass, which means this is kind of what we have from our power outlet here in our studio in good old Germany, where I have to admit that this German power grid is very, very stable. So this kind of product is giving you a consistent output voltage, and that's that can be a very, very big plus, especially in places where you have power grids that have exceeding voltages of exceeding the standard, exceeding 230 or exceeding 110, something like this. Because what happens in a tube amp is, in the classic tube amp, like the good old Marshall Fender, is there's a transformer, and that transformer is a simple device. It has like one coil and another coil, and they have a ratio of this comes in the same ratio, this much goes out. And like the high plate voltage for the tubes, 500 volts, depend on the voltage that comes in. So if the voltage that comes in exceeds the designer standard or the specification of the tube, because of, let's say this should be 230 and it's, I have seen 260 in Australia. It's like a lot. So, and then the plate voltage that probably should, let's say 500 is 535. And that might exceed what the tubes can actually handle, what they are designed for. And in the good old Hughes and Kettner days, I remember that because in Australia the Triumphs all blew up. So the power amp tubes blew up because the power stations in Australia had this exceeding voltage, because Australia is so big. So when you were living like close to a power station, the current, the power was not going through this ultra long landlines, and so they simply had more voltage at the beginning because they knew at the end they were losing something, because the long wires is a resistor and drops voltage. So they had like 260 near to the power station, and probably somewhere in the jungle there was only 190, who knows. But here in Germany, maybe it's because of the population and we have enough people in a small country living, and the power grid is maybe more dense. I think Germany is a country with not a critical power grid.
Yeah. So to go back to your Australia story about the Triumphs all blowing up, had they had something like the BrownBox there, would that have been something that could have prevented those amps from exploding?
Exactly. Yeah. And this is one reason why such a device can actually make sense.
Yeah.
And my point here is there's several aspects that come from such a device. One of them is that protection. For the Germans, I would say not needed, but for, America and Australia and maybe other countries, I'm not familiar with all the countries and the situations there, it can be a more important ingredient in your system. And by the way, that's why Angus Young also has a bigger device by Kikusui, Japanese company, which is kind of an even bigger brother of this, which is a very solid, like rack mount professional device, and that is giving him the correct voltage wherever he plays.
So he always has a consistent voltage, and we have someone in the comments saying that he gets it to 236 volts. So maybe that's what he has wherever he plays, and he uses this device, the Kikusui, to make sure that no matter where he is, no matter what the local voltage is, he's always at that 236.
Exactly.
Because that's also in theory not only technically for his amp to be working properly, but where he's going to have his sound as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I tried to show earlier with the tubes. The tubes change their tone depending on the voltage. And this is what I will try to show you now when we change the voltage. So this is now on 227 volts, and I make it maybe less. Make it very extreme and put it all the way down. So now 209 and this to 183 volts. We lose volume.
Yep.
And actually I think it's the only volume. I could compensate this here, like, but it feels like slow. So let's go back to normal volume. This was too much, sorry. I bring it back to bypass. Also, that affects different amplifiers differently. Let me hear the number 3. It's a Fender.
Fender Princeton.
Princeton. I can lift it up. That's about the only thing that I can still hold. Okay, now it's back on the floor. 6v6 tubes, and this is like on full. Reduction, extreme. For me, I love the Fender when it's full on.
Yeah.
But what's...
To me, it sounds more saturated.
Yeah.
When you reduce it.
Yeah.
As much as possible. In terms of volume, in the room, we didn't lose much.
No. It's more breakup.
Yeah.
Compared to the Marshall, where we actually lost volume. Here we have enough volume, but more clipping.
And does it feel different for you to play it?
Yeah. For me, let's go back for full on. The moment I have it full, I prefer it because it's that Fender feel that I want. The spanky. Ooh. This guitar has more knobs than. voltage, more headroom.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting that the tonal difference on the Fender is much more significant than the Marshall, at least to my ears.
Yeah.
Makes much more of a difference. Is there any reason for that you would know of?
Probably it depends. I don't know exactly now. It probably depends on which stage is clipping. This is not only the power amp stage, it also affects all the stages, the preamp tubes.
Yeah.
Every stage in the amp is affected by less voltage, different point of breakup. So depending on the amplifier design, we hear more of that. Depending on which stage in the amp clips. If, for instance, the power amp stage is still clean and we have the overtones from the first stage, it sounds maybe different, because one could be a softer clip and one could be a harder clip. And the harder clip usually comes even from the power amp stage. And the power amp stage clip is what can be so nasty and dirty in a way. Rolling Stones. If you listen to some of that, you can definitely hear that Fender style thing on some records. But we have more amps. My favorite Marshall is that 50 watt. Okay, we are on minimum. Now I do bypass. Versus. I hear something, but it's not like it loses its character.
No, that's extremely subtle, especially compared to the Fender.
Yeah. So what's the point here is different amps react differently to the same effects, because I have done the same dial-in. So do we need this? Well, if you have over voltage, exceeding voltage, you should have it, because that helps to keep your amps alive. If you keep blowing tubes, it's a safety thing. Check out if you like the sound. So you know, let's say I reduce it here, and this is what they talk about, is like bring it to the sweet spot. And for me, it's more like a feel thing. Of course, this situation that we have right now is kind of, we are listening to small studio monitors, and that's very pleasant because it's not too loud.
Yeah.
If I would have this, if you would stand straight in front of that cranked Marshall with my 4x12, it's like, ouch, no? That really hurts. And in this situation, this unit makes sense because it, maybe we can hear it, it's more a feel thing, makes your attack smoother.
Yeah.
It makes your... Let's go all the way down. It's not as aggressive anymore.
Yeah.
You hear also there's a lack of fullness at this point. So, by dialing in different... I think this makes 209. This is 214. And this is 218. Yeah, something is happening. Let me switch 2 steps. Maybe I prefer something that's full on. It's maybe already too bold in a way. Less. And I think it definitely feels, it's a feel thing with this amp.
Yeah.
And that can help you because a loud Marshall is very offensive. It's like, oh, no, I didn't mean that. And that, so you have to be either old school and wear some cotton or whatever. But crank Marshalls are mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this, for me, makes sense in this respect.
So a question from my side then. Is this a product that makes more sense to use in conjunction with vintage tube amplifiers?
Yeah, definitely.
To keep them safe? I mean, I know that something like the Amp 1, you're not going to need it, right? Because there's clever tech built into the Amp 1 to avoid it anyway. But
this is kind of built in the Amp 1 anyhow.
Yeah.
So the switch mode power supply that we have is basically what they are doing, and it is even the Amp 1 works anywhere on any power outlet in the world, and from 90 to 260 volts or whatever, and plus 10%, and on the that on the primary side. On the secondary side, it's like it brings out exactly the voltage that we want.
Yeah.
And anywhere where there is power, and it is enough to make it work, it will sound exactly the same. If you have a vintage tube amp, you have seen the tube curves, you have seen the ratio that happens when we change the power and the voltage, when we change the voltage, how it can affect the tone. That's something needed. For the vintage amps, reason 1, protection of tubes in case you have high voltage, too high voltage. And secondly, if you enjoy a smoother attack and maybe different tone. But be aware, not all changes are good changes. That's what we learned from the Fender. It's my taste and my Fender, different, that's, you have to try it out to make sure it's actually giving you something. So protection if needed, sound, that's an option because nothing can do what this is doing. Changing the EQ on the amp is doing something else. So, and who wants to rebias the amp and rearrange values in the preamp section? Nobody. So if you have your favorite amp, you can play around with such a thing and get to a point where you probably find something slightly more exciting.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. What I have with Amp 1 is it's already built in, and all the issues that the vintage guy or the vintage amp player has don't exist with Amp 1, because any power outlet in the world makes this work and sound exactly the same, period. So, and with the vintage amp, you go, and as we could hear, some amps sound differently. And all the stuff that we kind of created with this here happens actually in real. In like, you go into this place, into that place, and there are the differences. And that's why some people drive some people nuts, because they think like, what's wrong with me today? That's one factor. So power is one factor which is sensitive to vintage tube amps. Modern tube amps too, but by design less, because they are more controlled designed. Those old vintage amps they are over the place. Everything is, I always call this is the mattress, and the moment when you play notes, like somebody jumping on the mattress and everything splish splosh and changes, and that's part of the magic of these amps. And yeah, you can simply move that that range of the tubes slightly, and that affects the tone, the feel, and give it a go. That's on the other hand, when we have like pedals that work like with tubes, you can have the same thing, but only if you don't use a modern power supply. So if you have, I think this power supply here is definitely a modern one. I can feel it because it's lightweight. So if this is plugged in, and if we change the voltage, this power supply will work exactly like an amp 1. It will not affect the tone. But if you have those good old vintage Hughes & Kettner power supplies, for something like that tube replex, I know because it was my idea, and I was doing this with Bernd Schneider, and I know what's inside. This tube has high plate voltage, and how do we get the high plate voltage on this? Well, we have a I think it was a 12 volt, 800 milliamperes, so it's a pretty strong, powerful power supply, and just hold it. I mean, you know, that's a modern one with the twice as much output. No? So that's a modern, so to speak, digital power supply. And most people are raving about the digital power supply. So not everything digital or modern switch mode is bad. So that pedal show, greetings. Yeah. So, and this, what happens here? This is the good old transformer with 2 coils. The fixed ratio goes out into here, goes into the, in this case it's the replex. And how did we get the high plate voltage for the tube ACC 83 preamp tube? Well, we used such a transformer just the opposite way around. So if you have a transformer that has 220 for the Germans and gets you 9 volt out, you can have the same kind of thing, just the other way around. You go 9 volt in and you get 220 out on the other side. So, which means that ratio, what's coming in here, and is translated fixed with this transformer, and it's translated fixed with the inside transformer, which means any change here will end up at the tube. So if this pedal is in use, we can try it out. It will affect the tube. So how to do that? I will switch to amp 1. So we don't have an amp that is changing. And can you hold this for a sec? I will simply switch off my good old tube amps. Good night, sleep tight. Switch. So, and now I use the, okay, you are gone. Where's the Hughes & Kettner? I put this into, I haven't done this, but you know, it's always good to see. And that's the amp 1. And what we need is a patch cable, because, can I borrow your guitar cable? This here, Rich, where's this going? Yeah, into your amp 1. So if you give the put this in the output of So I put this side into the input. And then I go straight into that reflex input. So that's the reflex on bypass, nice as it should be. Now I switch on the tube, which is get rid of all the effects, so all the stuff we hear is the amp1 reverb for a little bit of ambience. And now we have the chance to dial in different voltages and see if anything happens. I mean, this is something we just do. Right?
Yeah.
No? It's boring, right? No? Interesting. And see, this is old school tube technology at its best. Sorry for being cynical about it. This is all the tolerances you get from this technology, and then some designer voiced something to a particular tube with a 20% tolerance on a certain outlet with some transformer, and maybe the amp sounded magic in his laboratory, but then you take it to some stage and it's like all over the place. No? When I put this on bypass, my amp1, I don't change anything like now, but it's like totally consistent. If I want, wait a minute, I can have fun tweaking now with my little where is it? One control. Here it's plugged in. So, but there is a lot. The consistency is 10 times. Well, there is no changes anymore. Oh, there's a foot switch in there. I didn't use that. I think that's from 2 episodes ago when I played Rosanna. So where are we? Huh? There is no. Oh. What did I do? Foot switch? It's okay. Aha. Yeah. Okay. I want black and blue. Okay, works. So, stop. So I put everything on full. And one thing is, I can use my power soak. And by the way, that's something similar, but again slightly different. What I scale the power now, it's partially volume, like listen to the difference in volume. But also the way it breaks up. Again, we were ACDC, sorry. More volume. And now I can tweak between the preamp section, how that should react. Like this was a preamp tube that kind of went nearly dull.
Yeah.
No? So, and I can reduce my preamp here and get a different power amp saturation happening. It's another way of tweaking, but totally consistent.
Yeah.
So this will be exactly the same on any power outlet on this planet. And that's what I try to do. I try to do a modern way of tube sound, consistent, lightweight, reliable, all that stuff. So, yeah, interesting.
But if you then add the replex into your rig, you then have the inconsistency of this pedal which you need to counteract with something like this.
Exactly.
So it gets more and more complicated. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. And this is why I see the future in understanding all the phenomena, thinking about what is the sweet spot, like you dial it in here, and freezing that to a consistent circuitry that is exactly doing what I want. This is, by the way, what modern tube amp designs also try to do. They try to get the saturation that happens in the power amp stage, in the phase, in all these different stages, in a controlled preamp saturation, like Friedman style. Problem is, it's not as dynamic, because they have to condense like 3 stages clipping, which are slightly doing different things, into like 1 stage. And that's a bit less chaotic, and that's, in my opinion, a little bit less alive. That's why I'm still the fan of those vintage amps. When you see my collection, I didn't buy all the Bogners. They are great amps, but these are better. Spinal Tap is 1 louder or 1 better. And this is like you know, Friedman released a 50 watt like mine with no effects loop, because he found out about what is the magic of the tube, old school tube amp designs that doesn't allow a few things. My personal creed is, I'm aware of all that, and I go to the next level and don't even use tubes for that anymore. And I believe I can prove that I'm pretty close. At least maybe closer than some tube amps with a different tolerance. That's my goal. So yeah, somebody says amp 1 exists. All the tones, none of them headaches. That's good. My Roland Blues Cube can be cranked to 13. That's 3 louder, right? Yes, it is. Hey, in Marshall, I think they had the DSL 2000 or whatever series going to up to 20.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that's over the top. Nobody needs that. I mean, we're talking ACDC. You know, the beauty of simplicity, the less is more thing. And 1 more is, you know, that's the range where the sweet spot happens. Yeah. I love my good old Kettner Replex. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Someone else using it with a silver amp 1.
Yeah.
In this case, the tone is magic.
Yeah, I'm still. I was thinking about an episode on the Academy of Tone, like my most important pedal, and that's my most important pedal.
I mean, you could do one with, you know, all of these, what do they call them, this series of H&K pedals? It had a name, right?
Tube tools.
Tube tools, exactly, because there's the Replex and then there's the Rotosphere, which is possibly, you know, the most famous of all of them.
Yeah. And I mean, I came up with all the ideas, all the concepts. I have the stuff upstairs. The funny thing is, this is okay, using Kettner Insider, they came up with, what can we do with tubes? And I said, maybe something that other people don't do, because that's always my approach. You know, don't go where everybody else is. And my idea is like, we should make a tubeless lead pedal. Hans goes like, tubeless lead pedal? What is it good for? Keyboard players use it on the Hammond organ. And then, why not? I was excited. Some people went, yeah, that would be a cool thing. Nobody understood nothing. And then it became, you know, Jeff Beck using it, Bonamassa using it, Aerosmith using it, Billy Gibbons using it. Everybody uses it. When I met Wishbone Ash, Amp 1, and I told him, hey, that pedal I designed it too. Oh, okay. Do we have one of those old power supplies left? Because they're hard to find, you know.
That was the question we always used to get at Hughes and Kettner. I've got a Replex or I've got a Rotosphere. I need a power supply, and that was the hardest thing to get them to people because it was just so difficult.
Yeah. And that's also a nightmare, because on the modern pedal boards, how to get 800 milliamperes of 12 volt AC.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this on my own pedal board. I designed my own power supply to feed that pedal and the other pedals. So anyway, that's yeah. In the end, this will end up in AmpX anyway. I mean, this is already in there. Everybody heard it. The Replex, I didn't start it because then the amp will never be released. But it's on my list and it will happen. And if I have too much time, I can make an effect pedal one day with all that stuff and the boosters and whatnot.
And a tube.
The thing is, we have the original tube.
Nano tube, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I tell you the truth is, I have done the replica of the Replex in the AmpX. So now with the boost station as replacing the tube, and it's the same. And this is not using a tube, so it's possible. Guys, it's over. One day I have to show you that mystery. There is a mystery about tubes. We can hear all that stuff going on. But if you know the sweet spot, we know how to get that exactly going in consistent, reliable way with different components, more reliable, less tolerance and all that stuff, modern way. Boom. And this is, I'm so proud of that. Because this is like, I spent years on that fuck, you know? And it would be so easy just to go back and use that old stuff because it's been done and then it's there. But no, it's about what's the future. I think we should get a few questions. What's going on? Any news on MX? Yes, of course.
Well, yeah, that's the future. What's the status? What's going on?
Currently, currently we are working on Wawa section. Because I found out that my good old Vox pedals, which are not here anymore, they are all in the R&D department. No? Usually I have like 3 different Vox Wawas. Those from 1967 with the Fasel coil, then with the Kanisterspule. I don't know what the English word for this is. It's an aluminium kind of thing. So I have the 3 Holy Grail originals from 1967 Vox collectors, blah, 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 you name it. And they have a super nice, sweet high end, and yeah, we are having difficulties to get it exactly like the real deal. But you know me, I stop when it's done, and this took us already 3 weeks. Let's see what tomorrow brings. we are faithful. So far, we managed everything. But that leads to the PCB revision, which is done on all the other things as a schematic, but then and that, I promise you, will be the last one, unless it will blow up. But so far we didn't have any blow-ups because the amp works. So there's a lot of things already tested and working. So those tweaks are worth doing it because it would limit the quality in the future, and I will mix it. I do my very best, and yeah, time is now to do it. So it's good. Yeah, somebody says, "Oh, poor Julian." That's true, but it's also me. It's not only him. Somebody has, I have an old hobby article with real simple transistor PCB schematic for wah, and it sounds very good to me. Yeah, I mean, talking about wah-wahs, just because we do, wah-wahs can be done in several ways. The old school wah-wahs had like 2 transistors, a coil and a capacitor and a resistor, done. Scratchy pot, all that stuff. But it's impedance sensitive, which means your Vox Wawa sounds different with a pedal in front or behind. it's so sensitive. So you have, the moment you measure it, your measuring system kills the tone already, and you measure bullshit. That's something you have to learn as well. Poor you learn. But we've been there many times. So anyway, that's the one type of wah-wah pedal. And then we have like 3 different coil types giving us different results. Then there's the wah-wah pedal that are using like a filter that moves, which is like a parametric style EQ with a certain Q, and that simply. And then there's wah-wahs with a certain amount of dry signal added to it, which I actually prefer. I have tons of these pedals, but also not here. They're all in the R&D, and they are important. That's why I choose them for me, because they have in the 3-piece band, if you have the Vox wah, it's like you have the Streets of San Francisco sound, or you have the Jimi Hendrix all the way sound, and there is nothing in the low range left. And that's why I retired my Vox wah-wahs for the studio and used a more modern wah-wah instead. And yeah, so we will be able to do all that stuff, and this is what we are doing.
So will all 3 of those wahs that you mentioned be kind of shipping with the Ampex when people buy it, or is that, what's the plan there?
The plan, this is, we will try to get as much stuff in there as we can, but honestly, there will not be tons of extra stuff. The point is, all of these extra pedals that are on the amp and that don't come as the freebies with the amp, they are on the amp, and you can play them with your guitar on your AmpX, in your house, in your studio, on stage, whatever, but there will this kind of cut out noise, so you have to pay us some money to really use them. But the good point is, you can check them out with your gear at home, and you should decide if you really need it. I'm not into get 5 wah-wahs for yourself, get the right one for you, no? And there will be a wah-wah for free, but you know, all the other esoteric ones, we want some cash for it, because we currently burn all the cash, and who's gonna pay us? Nobody. You in the future, but not currently. That's my money deficit. I think, like, even in 2 years' time, when we have more and more blueprints of great devices, you can go back and revisit stuff, because maybe you have bought another guitar, and then it makes sense, and you still have that on your amp, or you can download it. So there's many options, and I think hopefully it's a fair system, and I think, again, less is more. If and the right things are, no? The beauty of simplicity. Don't get hundreds of delays, and you know, it's like, that's the digital way. People collect and they spam themselves with IRs. It's like I have this microphone and that one, and which one should I get? And I try to be like, these are the options. There are even more options, but please don't have that collector's disease. And if so, you have to pay. That might cure it.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to the simplicity and what we've been talking about kind of this whole show, right?
Yeah.
The guys from AcDC back in the day, they didn't have anything like Ampex. They just wanted to make rock and roll music.
Exactly.
And they did.
They didn't even have channel switching.
No.
They didn't have overdrive pedals. They had no delay pedal. They had no reverb, and they had no wah-wah pedal. They had a guitar lead, later on, of course, the wireless, and they made beautiful music. And that's what it should be about.
Yep.
That's the focus. I'm a gear nerd too, I have to admit it, but that's my job, and I hope that what I can create out of my experience helps you guys. And I'm totally aware there's other products, and there are other great products out there, but don't spend all your life on the gear hunt. I'll do that for you. No, so that's the idea. And hey, by the way, I have had the original Kikusui power. Well, is it attenuator? It's the original unit that Angus Young actually uses. I think all of the ACDC guys are using. I mean, it's not their personal one, but the same unit.
Yeah.
And that was a couple of months ago. That video we will show you like now. And if you are the nerd guy, watch it, because I use different amps, different guitars, doing similar stuff. Yeah, so you get a feel of what a voltage regulator could do for you or not. And I would say less is more, but if that's the right thing, you can be happy that some people are out there doing such things at all.
Yeah.
And so there's always a reason for stuff. And just coming back to the Europe or Germany versus US, the voltage grid, the power grid in the US and in other countries is different. And so probably that's more effective in these countries. And maybe even because they have a less lower voltage, like 110 versus 230. I mean, if you have 10 volts less on 230, it's 220. But if you have 10 volts less on 110, it's only 100. And the percentage is way bigger.
Yeah.
So the effect is way more dramatic. And I would say check it out, watch the next part of the show, the 20 minutes Kikusui, what a name, I love it. Japanese high-end attenuator, and you have seen that BrownBox. So, thanks for watching. There's some things going on in the chat. I have no idea. I will read it later. So thanks for watching, and hey, thanks Rich for joining again.
Thank you for having me, and
yeah,
thank you for playing ACDC. I always like to come on and make you play ACDC songs because you don't do it enough.
Yeah, you are totally right. And it's good. It's good things. And yeah, and thanks for Max Carton who gave me or us some more insights, and he will be back in black. Okay, cheers guys. Take care and watch the rest of the video with the Kikusui. Well, ACDC, Van Halen, they all had a trick with the power. Eddie Van Halen used a variac to lower the power to get a different tone from his Plexi Marshall 100 watt. And Angus Young of ACDC has one of those Kikusui power supplies which give you a stable output voltage and output frequency. So no matter what kind of input voltage you have, like 110 in the US or 230 here in Europe, or whatever is the situation, this machine is makes sure that there is a consistent output voltage and a consistent output frequency. So in the US we have 60 Hertz, in Germany and in Europe we have 50 Hertz. Some people tell there's a huge difference of their amps when they play on this continent or on the other one. I'm not sure. So I have dialed 226 volts, since that's the exact setting of that machine with AC/DC. Currently I'm using this beautiful bad boy GCM 800 from Euge Valuvirta, and I show you how that sounds. It shouldn't be any better than, doesn't go any better than this, because we are on AC/DC voltage and the real deal Marshall 800. Okay, to compare with the Amp-1 Iridium edition on the classic channel. Amp-1, bad boy. Okay, there's a little tonal difference, but hey, this is the bad boy. And what I'm doing next is I will change the voltage that goes into both amps. Both amps are set up to the same power outlet coming from this, and then we can hear the difference. So this is bad boy, and that's Amp-1. Okay, this is very, very low. This is 134 volts. Way too low. Okay, but you can hear there's a difference. And let me show you what happens when I increase the voltage of the bad boy, and you can listen to the tonal changes. Well, actually, I do agree on the voltage that AC/DC is using. Somehow, that's the tightest and the punchiest sound that I can get. Maybe you hear the difference, maybe you don't. I know it's kind of esoteric and it's very little differences, but they actually do exist. And of course, the closer we get to the final range of 230 volts, we are pretty close. That's 240, or yeah, let's go for maximum. Pretty tight. And I go lower to, it's getting muddier, like 200, and then and 36 volts. Where are we? 236.0. Versus 234. Back to 236. Come on. 30 and 6.0. Well, I would say 234 sounds a bit more vintage and 236 sounds more in your face. Yeah, and anything lower than that sounds even more vintage up until the point where it's kind of fading to a fuzz. Okay, So this is what's happening with a real good old tube amp. I will switch to the Amp1 Iridium edition and $240, and I do extreme 160. There's no difference because this kind of thing is already built in to this one. So whatever voltage comes in to the Amp1, doesn't matter which Amp1, the Iridium or the Mercury edition, it sounds exactly the same. Let me show you. 186, 211, 218, 240. So, yeah, it's just my playing that differs, but nothing on the amp side. And compared to the bad boy, volume changes, headroom changes, overdrive characteristic changes, everything changes, okay? So this is what's happening on the overdrive sound. And of course, AcdC and the Super Pros are using these kind of power supplies for their consistency for their show. So no matter if they have a voltage drop, which is not rare. If you have an outdoor festival, you know, with a huge light show, the voltage can easily drop under, you know, 30, 40 volts down. And then you as a guitar player, you feel like, is this still me or is it getting muddy? That's why these guys have their extra power supply conditioners for a clean, consistent power. Let's check the golden voltage. Okay, we go up to 236 and I will change the frequency. Now we're on 50 Hertz. Increase to 60 Hertz, which would be the US. Now back to 50. You can hear the hum. Okay, 50. 60. For my ears, it sounds pretty much the same. I would say there is a minor difference, but that's more because of the hum modulates with the tone that you are playing. So that's, you know, the dirt has a different frequency and that changes the tone, to me. Whatever, that's my opinion. Okay, let's try the same with a clean sound. This one is my beloved Fender Princeton. Let's go, well, American style, 60 Hertz and 236 volts. See how that sounds. I decrease, so well, there goes my Fender. It needs that high voltage to have the headroom for clean. Already here, it's sensitive. It's kind of yeah, muddy and not tight anymore. This is you know, the more voltage, the better. It's my opinion on the clean. And I made the same experiment with, you know, the plate voltage on the tubes, because that's kind of directly connected. The higher the input voltage to the tube amp, the built-in transformer kind of has a special fixed ratio. So if there's more input volume, the plate voltage on the tubes is getting higher again, like 500 volts. And that's getting critical here. So, but I like to have high plate voltage. So, yeah, this is what's happening on the Fender. Let's switch to the Mercury edition. That's the Mercury edition. Fender. Yeah. Oh. And Mercury. Okay, so what's happening on the Mercury edition? 150 volts. Nothing, still the same. Well, the only thing that you can see here is the indication for the amount of amperes which is drawn from the unit. So now with all the amps being on, they suck kind of 2.79, 2.8 amperes. And when I play, of course, it takes more current. Like 3.4 or something like that. And the unit is designed to deliver 5 amperes. So we are still in a kind of easy range for the unit. So yeah, let's hear it with the strats going even a bit more esoteric. Sorry. Sounds pretty good on maximum voltage. But as soon as I decrease, it falls apart. And this is not even 20%, this is less. See, to me it sounds only good at maximum voltage. Anything lower is like... It's like muddy as hell. So the Fender to me is even more sensitive. And yeah, switching to the amp 1. Well, lower voltage, even lower voltage. We're going to 165. No problem. Doesn't matter. Okay, here a little addendum. The Fender, since it's so kind of sneaky and demanding, 60 Hertz versus 50 Hertz. 50, 60. 50. 50 and 60. Well, I'm not sure, but I think 60 sounds a little bit more pristine in the high end and maybe a touch fuller in the mid-range. I don't know why, maybe I make it up. Maybe you could hear it, maybe you don't. But at least we had a chance to listen to 50 and 60 Hertz on a Fender amp. So, what is the lesson that we can learn? To me, my amps are easy peasy because anywhere on this planet where there's a power outlet, they will sound exactly the same. And they sound good, as they should. The tube amps maybe sound killer at a certain voltage, but as soon as something is changing, they are very, very sensitive. They do react to the input voltage and they change their character. And that's probably not what you want, because there's a moment of surprise. And just imagine you are outdoor festival, I've been there, and then, you know, the evening starts, the light system is and the volume of the PA is getting louder and louder, it's getting dark, and then somebody hits a very low noise with a synthesizer and the bass drum, and there's big voltage drop, easy, and your good old tube amp without such a unit will simply lose its character. So anyway, so the Kikusui power supply is what you could buy to overcome these things, or simply get an amp one and you have none of these issues. Yeah, there's always workarounds with kind of a laboratory tool for rock musicians to get the good old stuff sounding well, or you get a decent modern amp one.